Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Piyush and this is video number 19 in the series CKA 2024, and in this video we'll be looking into config map and secrets. So something that we would have covered in one of the previous videos but somehow I missed it, so I thought of covering it now. So we'll be looking into the concept and we'll be doing some demo, and I will have a task for you in the GitHub repository of day 19 folder. You can complete that as well for the hands-on practice. And the comments and like target of this video is 150 comments, 150 likes. Pretty small, easily doable, and I'm sure you can do that in the next 24 hours. So please try to complete that, and I will see you soon with the next video after that. So yeah, without wasting any time further, let's start with this video. Okay, so if you remember in the day 11 video where we have looked into multi-container concepts, and we also looked into commands and arguments and environment variables, right? So this is how we used environment variable earlier. So we actually pass the environment variable within key value pair in the pod YAML itself. It's okay if we do that like this, but when these environment variable grows, and let's say we have some repeatable tasks like this particular environment variable I'm using in this pod and 10 other pods, then it's not really a good practice to keep everything in 10 different YAMLs, right? And the values could differ from each other, but we want to have a same value for the identical environment variables, right? So for that, what we do as part of a best practice, we keep everything aside of the container. We take this outside and we create a config map object, and we actually place this key value pair inside that config map, and then we inject that value inside this pod. Right, so this is how we do. So let me just copy it for now. Okay, and I'm gonna go to day 19 folder. I have a pod.yaml, paste it, and I'm just gonna remove some other fields such as init containers. I don't need init containers for this demo, so I'm gonna remove it. Okay, and okay, so now what it has a busybox image, and I'm just doing an env. I'm just using an environment variable with name and value, and then there'll be a command running. Okay, and the command will be printing the app is running, and then it'll sleep for 3600 seconds. Okay, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, nothing fancy about it. So if we do that, if we apply this YAML, k apply, okay, first I have to go to day 19 folder. Okay, and ctl-f apply pod.yaml. The pod should be created. Okay, I'm gonna clean up the previous pods. I don't need those anymore. And then 3. Okay, been deleted. Now if we do k get pods, the pod is running. That one is still terminating, so that's okay. It will take its own time. Not worried about that. I'm gonna exec into this pod, exec, and then --sh, and I'm gonna print the environment variable, or I can just do an echo on the environment variable that we had. It was first name, and it is printing the value of the environment variable. Now let's try to do that with a different way by creating the config map out of it. Okay, so for that, let's remove the environment variable from here. Okay, and let's create a config map. So creating the config map, we have different ways like imperative and declarative ways. So let's have a look at all those things. So first we'll try to do with the imperative way. So we'll be using the command k create cm or config map. It's cm is short for config map, and then give it a name. So let's give it app-cm. Okay, and use this syntax from literal equal to, and then name and the value. So first name equal to value, first name equal to Piyush. So this is the syntax. If we have multiple environment variables or multiple data in the config map, you can separate it with this backslash so that it will take the next line as well, and use the same syntax again from literal equal to last name equal to value. Okay, So from literal equal to name equal to value, key value pair. Okay. And hit enter. Now our config map is created. So if we do kget cm, here is our config map. You can do a describe on that. Describe cm slash appcm, and it will show you 4 different fields. Name, namespace is part of it. We have name, labels, annotations, namespace, and then data. Okay. In data, we have these values. Last name is Sachdeva, first name is Piyush. Okay. So key colon value, key colon value. Okay. That's what we see when we describe the config map. Now we have created the config map. Now the next part is to inject that config map in the pod YAML. So how we can do that? You can check the syntax as well. Okay, let's go over here. Config map. There are different ways by which we can do that. So first is you create the config map and then you inject it like this. Environment, name, value from, and this. So if you're using this method, you have to specify the environment variable and this block for every single variable, right? So that's one way of doing it. The next way is using config map as the file from pod. So you mount that as a volume. Okay, so this is one of the best practice to mount config map or secrets as the volume. Actually, we don't use config map to mount as a volume, but we do that with the secrets. We have not covered volumes yet, so that's why I'm not covering this for now. It will just confuse you. I don't want to do that. But what it will do basically, it will create a volume. Okay, volume is nothing but a storage attached to your container, okay, on a particular path, and then you can consume the environment variable from that path, right? We will cover that once we do the storage section. Okay, and the next is so this is one way, like what I've told you, like we can configure it with one single config map, one single environment variable, and you can do that for entire file. But let's see how we can do that with this method, right? So I'm just gonna copy this field over here, and let's go back, and over here it's supposed to be inside container. Let's make double sure. Yeah, inside the container at the same level of name, image, and other container properties. So over here, right? So we have config map username. So username is first name. So remember when we created the data inside config map, the variable name that we used was in small letters. Now we are using capital letters because those are different. Now we are just, what we are doing is we are creating the name. This is the actual name. This is the name of actually the config map. Okay, so config map name was app-cm and username was first name. And over here is our first name reference. So this reference is from is for the container, and this reference is from the config map. Right. So let's have a look at this again. So we have env block. Inside that we have the variable for the container. So inside container, this will be the variable. Okay. And then we are taking the value from config map key reference. Okay. From where we are getting the value? We are getting the value from config map key reference, and the config map name is this. And the key is this. Okay. So there is a key inside the config map from where we are getting the value. Here is the name of config map. Here is the value of the config map. Okay. So this is how we will inject the config map inside the container. So I'm just gonna save this file and let's apply this again. K apply -f pod.yaml, and let's do a force on this. Okay, it's kind of getting stuck. So let me just delete the pod and recreate it again. It will be much easier. It was actually doing its thing, but I deleted it before that. uh Delete pod. Okay, so now let's apply this file again. Created kget pods, it's running. So let me do exec into the pod, and now if we do an echo on first name, Now I'm getting the value because we have injected the config map inside the container. So if we do an exit and let's do a describe on this pod. Okay, go up in the environment variable section. Okay, here, environment, first name. Okay, and it says set the key to the first name of the config map appcm. So it is giving you the reference. Set to the key first name of the config map appcm. So inside appcm, first name value will be substituted over here in this local environment variable. Right, so that's what it says. And yeah, that's about the config map. So that's one way of creating the config map. Other way is, so instead of like the way we did that over here, the command that we used to create config map was from literal and then key value pair and all those things. But if it grows too large, so let's say there are hundreds of key value pair, it is not advisable to do that line by line. So what we can do is we can give the reference of a file. So we place all these key value pair inside a file. Okay, and then we give the reference from here and we call it, instead of from literal, we call it from file, and let's say app.config or whatever the name of the file it is, right? And it will create the config map for you. And same way you can inject the config map inside the pod YAML. Now, there is one thing in the exam, they might ask you to update the values of the config map or change it. So you cannot really change the value unless you force it. So you have to use the hyphen force, or you have to delete the pod and create it again, like the way we did. Okay, so that was the imperative way. Let's see how we can create the config map from declarative way. So first is what we can do. We can use the same command. Okay, what? Okay, from literal this command, then do a dry run client. Okay, and hyphen o YAML. Let's keep it in a file. The output of this in a file. So we call it cm.yaml. Okay, let's open this file and let's start seeing its content. So it has API version, it has kind, metadata. These three fields are same for any Kubernetes object. Now, instead of spec, we have data. It could be over here or it could be at the last, that doesn't matter. So the last field is data and the key value pair of data, right? So you can simply create this file and apply the file, config map will be created. So API version, kind is config map, metadata will have the name. You can remove this if you want, just to avoid any confusion, right? So API version, kind, metadata with the name and labels. You can add labels over here. And then data will have the data of the config map, like all the key value pairs, all the environment variables that you want to inject inside a pod. You can just apply this YAML and then you can inject this particular file inside the config map. Okay. So the way you can inject the config map, we have already seen one way. And another way is using the entire file. So let me see the example of how we can do that for entire file. Over here, we have used it for one username, right? One variable. Let's see how we can do that for all the variables. Configure a pod for config map. Let's see this one. Okay, go down. This is config map creation. This is again config map. Let's see where they are using the pod. Okay, here's the pod. Over here, they are defining the environment variable the way we did. So that's okay. And let's see the other example. Over here as well, we are using multiple environment variables and we are giving it reference again and again. And over here is what we need. Okay, so this is the other way. So instead of placing that as a config map, we can do like this: environment from env from config map reference and just the name of config map. And then it will load all the environment variables from this config map inside the container. So this is the efficient way. Like let's say you have hundreds of environment variable. You don't want to do that the way we did for every single environment variable. So this is how you can do that. Just 3 lines and all your environment variables will be loaded inside the container. So this is one of the efficient way. And there is one way which I've told you to use it as a volume. So this is that way, which will be again looking into the storage section. So yeah, I'm not gonna describe it for now, but you can have a look if you want. It's pretty straightforward. It says volume, you create a volume mount on a mount path. Okay, this is the mount path inside the container. And then you create a volume, you give the reference of your config map. So it will basically mount that config map as a volume inside the container, so that it will be accessible throughout the container. It will be not injected in the container, but it will be mounted on the container. That's the only difference. And here is the syntax of it. So yeah, you can have a look at that. So I guess we have covered enough about config map and secrets. The reason why I wanted to cover this, because we'll be using this reference in many of the later videos. So that's why I've thought of covering it now. So I'm sure it will be clear now and it will make more sense now. So yep. All right. So that's it about this video. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for the patience so far. I hope you are liking the series, and I'm sure you are sharing it with your friends and colleagues, so that they can also take part in this learning opportunity, so that they can also learn what you have learned so far, and so that it will also keep me motivated. When people like and comment on these videos, it will be, a motivating factor for me as well to keep producing more content and such a fast pace that I'm doing these days. So yeah, thank you so much. Please try to complete the comments and like targets of this video as well as other videos, whichever you are watching, so that the next video will be uploaded soon. And I hope you have a good day. Feel free to reach out to us in YouTube section, on the Discord community. If you are stuck somewhere, try to complete the task given in the GitHub repository of day 19 folder. It will be a good hands-on exercise for you. And that's it. I will see you soon with the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Happy learning.